9:50. Okay.
Other than they just part of the law.
Yeah, not for using federal funds, we're using sand for going for pace.
They let the back to go for testing and stuff.
We actually,
But, you know, then she tried to get him to send it to. We're like, oh, this is like. But it's not.
Mic check, 1 2 1 2.
Ready? And I'll do the official clicking, so we're live on mic.
Good. All right. Good morning. It's been a, no, that's okay. No, I was just thinking it's been over probably half a year since we've met, so it's been a long time. What I'd like for us to do, just because there's probably been a lot of new faces, is why don't we start at this table, just briefly introduce yourselves, kind of work this way, and let's just kind of talk and introduce ourselves. I'm George Jabbar. I'm from Killeen ISD.
She got it right. And executive director. You did say president.
Yes, president of,
Did
and
y'all
Bobby
say what y'all were?
is our vice president, Nancy is our treasurer, and Judy Monroe from Waco ISD is our secretary, and I don't see her, so she might either be in travel, but I have not heard whether she's able to make it or not. So, thank you and welcome. One of the things I want to just mention to you real brief is on the 31st of October, in our school district, I've got 10 furniture vendors that are coming to display elementary school furniture for us. And so if you are in the need or want to come down on that day to view some of the furniture, I've got 10 vendors that are going to be setting up elementary school classroom type furniture and library furniture for us to view as part of our evaluation for an elementary school that we will be standing up this summer. Part of that also is we have some of our 5th grade students also evaluating the furniture, so we've involved our students to be part of that as well. So if you have an interest in that, just email me and I'll give you more details, and you're welcome to attend, but I wanted to sort of invite you as well. Our minutes that Judy posts those on the TASBO Connect, so you will find our last minutes there. And Nancy, would you just briefly provide us a treasury report, please?
Sure. We have $14,905.30, and I still have about 15 districts that have not paid.
Great, great. Does anybody have any comment or anything that they wish to announce before we start with the presentations today? If not, Jamie, it's all yours, sir.
All right, so as I kind of mentioned to you all in the one of the emails, originally we had the Office of Attorney General was going to be here today to talk about fraud and collusion and stuff. They, for some reason, got a trip to Colorado. I'm assuming on business, so that's why he had to cancel. So, but anyway, the second speaker, Richard, you want to come on up? What we kind of had mentioned to y'all was we were going to really kind of focus what we do within the purchasing world, and actually gave us a report that we could actually fall back on to say, here are areas we need to work on. And so we're really appreciative of what she did for that. But because of what she was able to do, we also decided that, hey, we need to kind of get that knowledge that we actually were seeing out of them come in and start to share that knowledge more with everybody. And so if you recall the survey I did, and I said something about training, and everybody was calling me on it, like, weren't we supposed to do training on this day? Well, we had to kind of keep putting her off because we weren't quite ready to do all of this. And we finally came to this day as being the opportunity for us to be able to kind of talk it, throughout with the whole group. And so from that standpoint, what we really like to do is I want Patricia to kind of talk a little bit about who she is and what she's done and where she's coming from on her side. But also too is we really want to kind of get feedback from y'all on where we need to go beyond that. So Patricia, you want to go ahead?
All right, thank you, Jamie. I'm Tricia Mauser, and as I said in the introduction, I'm a retired child nutrition director. I have 35 years in teacher retirement, and it's wonderful. But I did retire 9 years ago, and a lot changes in 9 years. I have been a consulting dietitian and trainer for the Institute for Child Nutrition, and that's a national group funded by USDA for 15 years. Part of that is a one-week training program that has 15 different classes in it for new child nutrition directors. So you can imagine, one of the 15 is procurement. We are not procurement experts, and I'm going to take that off the table right now. And I told Jamie that when he called me. And he said, but the Institute for Child Nutrition said that you're a procurement trainer. And yes, I am. But understand, when it comes to procurement, you guys have the knowledge. And I used to rely on my procurement director. I would put bid specs through him. I would put advertising through him. He would sit with me in bid openings, because if a question came up, I would look at him. So this is from the perspective of a child nutrition director. I know when I would write bid specs, and it would be a piece of equipment or some large purchase, I would think, I didn't know I was going to have to be an expert in this. And I'm sure you feel the same way about some of the things you procure that aren't routine. It's like, I have to be an expert in everything, because the school district purchases everything. And so I appreciate the work that you do, and I hope that you all have a strong working relationship with your child nutrition departments. Because one of the things I see, and we talked about this as well, is that when I do training programs for child nutrition folks, there's not enough communication with other departments. So if they're responsible for procurement, there's not enough communication with procurement. Or personnel, there's not enough communication with human resources. Or financial management, there's not enough communication with the business office. And it took me 35 years of work to realize nobody has enough communication. So what I'd like to do is, I brought some notes because I want to just cover some key points of the new procurement audit. And I want to talk about a few findings that we've seen. Since I've retired, I have been working with Texas Department of Ag on some projects, and I serve on one of their committees. And Texas Department of Ag administers the program. So there are going to be some differences between Edgar. Don't ask me about Edgar. I don't know him. And that's what I told Jamie when we started, is that that's a whole different world for me. So I need your expertise and his expertise when it comes to that. What I'm finding is that procurement offices don't understand Department of Ag. That's foreign to you. So let me go over a couple of things real quickly, and we want to take some notes from your comments. I really want this to be a back and forth. What do you need? What are your questions? What type of training could be developed to meet your needs? That type of information. I have the survey that Jamie did in August, and I'm going to go over a couple of those questions and just kind of spark your thinking so that you would share with us what you need. I mentioned that the Department of Ag administers the federal program for child nutrition. Specifically, Texas Department of Ag has the authority to have more stringent guidelines than the federal. And we do have some different guidelines than Edgar. This began in the review process in 2015-16, and you got to be one of the first, the guinea pig. And some of the findings that year, there were 446 reviews, child nutrition programs. Large numbers had a lack of adequate documentation. When they say we have paperwork reduction, not in child nutrition programs. 152 had no code of conduct. When I teach this, people say, but we have a school district ethics policy. That won't do. You have to have a written procurement plan for the child nutrition department. They say our procurement office has a written plan. That won't do. There are checklists that you can follow. Some service centers provide this. Region 4, I'm going to give a shout out. I do a lot of training in that area. Has a checklist for the procurement review. They have sample code of conduct, sample procurement plans that you can customize very easily. Just use the template and lay in your information. But these are the findings primarily. Since then, they've had similar findings every year in 2016 to 17, 2017 to 18. The regional service centers have been conducting training programs and providing as much information as possible. But in all honesty, this process has evolved from where it began, and different interpretation has been taking place throughout this period. So something may have changed, and it probably has. How many of you are familiar with the TDA Administrator's Reference Manual?
Arm.
The ARM?
The arm.
Okay, that's a problem. Section 17 of the ARM, we use a lot of acronyms, and you're right, and sometimes I forget what they stand for. Edgar, I forget what it stands for because I don't want to know anymore, okay? That's not my expertise. Section 17, 3 years ago, had 77, 78 pages on procurement. Now it has 110. There's a whole lot more information defining aggregates, micro-purchasing, some of these things that differ from Edgar. And most procurement offices aren't familiar with it. In fact, a lot of child nutrition directors aren't familiar with it. And that's what we've always called the Bible, because every section in the Administrator's Reference Manual is specific to a responsibility in following federal guidelines in child nutrition. So I can see that as probably the #1 training need, is working through that section, because you can answer a lot of questions, and that's basically what we did. Where do you find the answers? And we would tab pages and highlight key points, because it's all identified in the ARM to date. Now, the latest revision was in June, and it may be revised. They send you an email from the service center to the child nutrition director. Anytime there's a revision, and they're specific to what that is. So I haven't checked it in the last month. I hear there's a lot of discussion going on about the micro-purchase threshold and the aggregate question, and just keep watching to see when that changes, because it hasn't changed. And that kind of puts us at odds with Edgar. Oh, I wrote this down. Regarding, I copied this from page 17.15. Regarding Education Department General Administration regulations. There are some regulations in conflict with USDA regulations, and when in conflict, the contracting entities are required to follow the USDA regulations for all child nutrition program funds. So that's where a big difference is. A lot of questions came up in the survey that Jamie did about that. The school nutrition plan has to cover all types of procurement. It has to include the code of conduct for the child nutrition department. It has to be specific for micro purchasing, the small or simplified acquisition threshold, informal purchasing, as well as formal invitation for bid, request for proposal. And again, there are checklists and sample templates available, but not every service center provides that for child nutrition directors. So I'm aware of a few, and that's generally what I distribute when I'm training. The information that a child nutrition program director receives from the service center comes directly from Texas Department of Ag. But since the service centers are pretty independent, the additional information such as templates and memos could differ. There was a lot of question about Buy American. Page 17.53 of the ARM. The Buy American provision requires schools to purchase domestically grown and processed food to the maximum extent practicable. For a food product to meet the Buy American requirement, over 51% of the final processed food product must consist of agricultural commodities that were grown domestically. Contracting entities must ensure that all solicitations and contracts for food products include the Buy American provision. This pertains to micro purchases. It pertains to any food products purchased with child nutrition funds. So you've got a catering event and you need to run to the nearby grocery store, pick up something that you don't have on hand for that specific event. You have to have some type of clarification in your mind that that's an American product, and if not, why you're purchasing it. And we have a short list of products that are not necessarily American. Olives, pineapple, bananas. So we've got probably 5 items that if I go to the grocery store and I buy one of those, I'm pretty safe. But if I buy a can of green beans and it's from Chile or Mexico, So there has to be a process even in micro purchases, and a lot of people are surprised at that. I saw in the survey that somebody had questioned in their review that the reviewer had indicated they needed to have the Buy American clause for non-food items, so I'm not really sure why that happened. It's specific to food. But realize, since this was a new procedure, the year you were the guinea pig, that even the reviewers hadn't gone through the evolution that we've gone through now. I'm going to say a little bit more about micro-purchasing, because micro-purchasing is really the big change. When we had a reauthorization in 2012, micro-purchasing was the big change in procurement regs. Most of this has already been on the books. But the key in micro-purchasing is you have to spread the wealth. In other words, you can't go to the very same local store every time for that item unless you can justify that it's more cost-effective, time efficient, you have some other justification. Small towns have a problem with that. I'm from 27 years of my experience was with Midland schools. Some of those little bitty towns around us only had one mom and pop store that they could run to if they ran out of bread or milk or whatever the situation was. So they could basically have a statement in their procurement file that says the next nearest availability for that product was going to be a 20-mile drive. If I had to go to Odessa, I didn't in Midland and Odessa, but how much time and money that would cost. So you are still being more efficient. But if you're in some place like the Austin area, you're going to be hard-pressed to justify one particular vendor for every micro-purchase. And there needs to be a log of those micro-purchases. I hope y'all are writing down some ideas for more that you want to hear, because I'm only hitting the high points. Some other common findings. I said the lack of documentation, code of conduct, an incomplete plan or no plan, poor contract management. So once the contract is made, what type of follow-through is there? And it just has to be documented. The last page of the ARM for procurement, section 17, page 17.109, Texas Department of Ag may take appropriate fiscal action or terminate the food nutrition agreement for a contracting entity that is not in compliance with the procurement requirements. The cost for any products or services that were procured improperly are unallowable costs to the school nutrition program. Now, fiscal action has not been taken these first 3 years. I've been told that they haven't said, and they won't, that starting this year it changes because it's given everybody one review. But you work with procurement all the time, so you understand the magnitude of the dollars that we could be talking about. So what would happen is TDA has a finding, so the value of that procurement is refunded. And if the child nutrition department doesn't have the funds on hand, and quite frankly, 3/4 of the 1,200 programs in Texas are subsidized by the general fund of the school district, the school district budget pays for it. So that's the enforcer. That's really the big stick that districts can't afford. So just realize. I'm going to give you some of the survey responses, and if you'll just kind of make some notes as I'm going through this, if that is something you feel would be valuable in a training or a webinar or some type of future information, or if you have something else that you would add to this, that's what we're wanting. So my first recommendation is the ARM 101, and we're not going to read you 110 pages, but we will point out some key areas that we're finding problems in and give you page numbers. How does Edgar different from child nutrition program? That'd be a panel because I need somebody that knows Edgar to do that.
Take care of it.
Talking about Buy American, because it's all aspects of procurement for food. Any funds used from child nutrition. Being food service management company compliant. There's a section in the ARM about that. How to prepare for a procurement audit. A boilerplate, a template of the required forms that are needed for a child nutrition program solicitation. What's the definition of aggregate? And that's what I keep hearing is still being deliberated at TDA to try to bring their micro purchase threshold closer to Edgar. But nothing's coming out, so we're waiting. Micro purchasing, code of ethics. Oh, co-op purchasing, third-party purchasing. There's a whole section on third-party purchasing in section 17. One thing that they found is that some of the third-party or co-op purchasing didn't have adequate documentation in the review. So the documentation that the local child nutrition program needs to have on hand during a review, even if they procure through a third party, needs to have it as if they had conducted it themselves. They need to have the advertising, the vendor list, the tabulation. If you have a grid, you know, all of that information has to be held at the child nutrition office for the review, and it simply wasn't available, even contacting that third party. So that was a big eye-opener. All right, that's really just an overview. We want to hear from...
Yeah. So just to kind of give you kind of a better understanding of what we're really looking for this particular program is that obviously, you know, since we're going to be broadcasting this out, you know, to the collective in the way of the entire CTPA community, we kind of want to make sure it's going to be available to as many as possible. and to the 28 that are online watching right now. You know, it's like going, okay, you know, there's a way for us to be able to communicate this out. And we've identified that TASBO is kind of going to be the best medium for us to do this because they do it all the time. They know how to do it. So more than likely, we'll probably have it set up through them. Okay, so obviously, as I've said before, if you want to be a part of the community, yes, you do need to be a member of TASBO. So just kind of be aware of that.
I used to be a member of TASBO.
Yeah, you used to be, yeah. Well, she still works with TASBO from the standpoint of the, you know, some other
Reviews.
aspects. But the one thing that I want to kind of hear from everyone here as well as online is that we're trying to figure out exactly how to develop this. And so we really need a group of people, and preferably 3, that would like to assist us in the way of helping figure out exactly what the curriculum is going to look like, how it's going to be delivered, how long it's going to be, and things like that. So if you really want to kind of be in the middle of that, just let me know. If you want to step out today, that's great. Just let me know. If you want to just kind of mull it over and then just kind of contact me later and say, hey, I want to be part of the group that's going to help develop what the curriculum is going to look like. Patricia needs some guidance on exactly what's coming from our minds. She has a survey, which I can tell you that was kind of all over the place, which was great because it gave us a lot of understanding of where everybody was coming from. But we obviously kind of look at that survey and kind of drive it at where more people are actually focusing in on. Like she was talking about, you know, how many, you know, procurement offices can actually tell you what ARM 17 is. And we really didn't get into it. We didn't know it much when we first learned about it. I've got a copy of it sitting on my desk. It's about that thick. Well, actually, it's not just ARM 17, but it's the whole ARM. But
That's over 500 pages.
yeah. And so from that standpoint, it's like when there's just a lot of stuff. And we really want to kind of focus in on what are going to be the key aspects. Obviously, Patricia's kind of signed on, is helping us do this. I can tell you that when she first came in and kind of, you know, we kind of brought her in because of the recognition she got from the audit group, is that she is really great on doing the research. And Danny can kind of attest to this, that, you know, we would kind of say, hey, what about this? And she really didn't have the answer at that point, but I can tell you she came back with it. And she was actually, you know, went and did the research and such, which we really appreciate because we didn't have to. And so it was very helpful. So that's what we're really looking this training to be, is those questions that you've raised through the survey, plus anything that you provide with us today. But also then we need a group of people that are going to help us drive exactly what's going to be most important, what's relevant, how it's going to be delivered. You know, we kind of know that maybe through TASBO, but like what's an expected period of time that you can actually be online watching this stuff. We are planning on recording it and actually put it in the library. So if you didn't have time to be able to watch it, you can go back and look at it. Or if you have new staff that comes on, and you know you have somebody that is just, you know, all of a sudden took over the food service desk, then obviously they've got a place to go and read. Now, obviously, it's only as pertinent as the day it's delivered because the Texas Department of Ag may change it the next day. And what we can do is, because of the fact that we're going to be able to record them, we can always have those little disclaimers that pop up on the window. Be aware that it just changed from 3,500 to 10,000, which we hope is soon. So from that standpoint, you know, it's just kind of one of those things where, you know, we realize that relevancy is, you know, based on the day of, but we will make sure that it is corrected and stuff if there is anything that changes. So what do y'all think? Is this something that y'all are kind of think that it's going to be very valuable to your operations?
I think so.
Okay. All right, good. So how many of y'all have had a cat? I'm sorry. Yeah, our one food service person. Yeah.
As a common trust director, we don't get enough information from our service centers because they're so thin that this information, even proceeding as a food service director, is very valuable.
Okay, cool.
That we were one of those guinea pigs in the first year of the procurement audit, and I struggled because my business office and I, even though we're not very far away, that communication wasn't there. The templates was different. You know, the records was different. Code of conduct and code of ethics, thinking that was the same thing. It's not. So this type of training will open our eyes a little bit more and be beneficial. So I just wanted to let you know.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Ms. Lisa? And which will be very interesting because Lisa is actually telling me about what's going on over in her area, which is the Gulf Coast area, that they're actually going to start talking among themselves about doing best practices. And I see that what could actually happen here is as we kind of go through this and we do the training, is we kind of decide that this is going to be considered a best practice, and we really kind of drive a little bit more of what the templates are going to look like, how we're going to communicate out in our bids, and it's like, okay, what kind of things the Buy Americas and all that kind of stuff that we've got to make sure they're included. This now becomes best practice, and so that's we're in our world, we love best practices because that's just something we can go grab and hold on to, and then we can validate what we're attempting to try to do just simply by saying here is the best practices recognized by the many. So, yeah, George.
Our school district, our school nutrition went through the first audit last year.
Okay.
And it was really an eye-opening because they stated that they were asking for code of conduct and all these things that we had to create these things
Yes.
for the audit. And fortunately for us, they exceedingly well, surprisingly to me.
Yeah.
They did exceedingly well in the audit. But it was an eye-opener for us. That's the reason I brought on my specialist here to hear what you have to say, because
Okay.
we feel that for many years we've been detached from school nutrition operations. And now that Edgar has arrived, and although Edgar's more educational flavor, but then you have really all of these entities that really fall under the federal regulations as a whole, that having to read behind is very eye-opening that you've got specialty rules that address and trump other things. And so I think it's phenomenal to be able to align all the procurement piece with school nutrition. And the days of them working kind of on their own and being independent, being their own world, that's coming to an end in terms of the all have to unify this problem.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how many of y'all know if you've gone through a CAP? You've gotten your audit, you've gotten your feedback from, okay, so y'all kind of know, like with us, ours was 15, 16 that they audited. So guess what? This year is is our audit year. And so we've been very diligent on making sure, because that's one of the reasons why we had to bring Patricia in pretty quick, and say we've got to figure this out because we're going to have to start running quick. And so it's critical, especially if you got a 16, 17 audit, next year's your time. So this is actually a really good time for you to kind of start focusing in on, because now you've got to start planning on what's going on. Craig, do we have anybody asking for any questions or any statements or anything? Okay, good. They're only, I was going to tell Philip, they're 15 seconds ahead of us in the future. So, but I don't know if Philip's going to actually get that or not. But anyway, so is everybody kind of good with this? We're going to go ahead and start moving forward with the program. Looking for volunteers. I've got to have George. Good. So it's like I feel like I need to get into an auctioneer kind of thing. It's like, okay. So, but anyway, we'll get started. And I guess I'll make you the lead. First on. So, but anyway, we'll definitely get you two together on getting started. And again, please, we need some others to join in to kind of help develop this. And I'm assuming a lot of the conversation will be online. Now, one of the things about Patricia is the fact that she's very busy. So we have to kind of fit inside her schedule. So, matter of fact, it was a lot of times when we were playing phone tag back and forth because she would be way out of town and I'd be in meetings or whatever. So we're going to, want to make sure that we get started as soon as possible so we can make sure we get on her schedule. So, anyway.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much, ma'am. I appreciate the help. And
Thank
so-
you.
And y'all will be hearing much more from Patricia. And she, by the way, just to kind of let y'all know, we tried to figure out exactly what her true name is because she goes by Patricia, she goes by Trish. What was some of the other nicknames?
I prefer Trisha.
Trisha. So.
Trisha.
So yeah, I was talking to a gentleman that she used to work with out at Midland, and and I said, yeah, I know somebody that used to be child nutrition director out there, and what did he call you, Patty or something, or Patsy? Yeah, Patty or something like that. Well, no, I think it was Trish, and then we finally realized we're talking about the same person. So. Okay, so now we're moving on, and this is where Mr. Bobby gets to come on up. And I'm not going to get too deep into this because he's actually going to start talking. and I need to move the microphone over since you're going to be over there. So.
Good morning, everyone. How many of y'all remember the card game we played as a kid called Go Fish? Okay. Well, right now, CTPA is about to revolutionize how every purchasing department across the state of Texas plays their version of Go Fish. You know, when you got to log into TASBO Connect, and you say, who has the vendor packet for so-and-so, okay? And you say, yes, I got a match. And it's like, ooh, bonus, they're EGR compliant, okay? All right, we're gonna go back and what we've been working on since last year was creating a new awarded vendor portal, which allows us to go back and access other member districts' vendor packets. Okay? Not just amongst the school districts, but also purchasing cooperatives as well. Jamie, where's your clicker? Okay, thank you. Okay, one more. Okay, so the way it sends up, if we wanted to look at what was your need? Okay.
I'm a control freak.
Thank you. What was the end user's need? That you go back and you sign in and you search for the awarded vendor portal, and it's really divided into two parts. One for purchasing cooperatives, and then the other part for member districts. And then from there, basically each one has the ability to go back and add their vendors. Then it takes the next step is basically your search results. And that's the whole process. Before I get into this one here though, what I'll do is show you what it looks like because we do have a demo for it. And this is the part I kept screwing up this morning, so bear with me.
Danny, come on, go ahead. That's it. Yeah, you got it.
Okay, I did. Okay.
Yeah, just
All right,
log in.
so basically you just log in, and then from here, because I don't have it on here, is let's say you have a new coach in your district, okay? And the coach wants to use the trophy vendor they used in their previous district. So she says, hey, can y'all find me this vendor? So before, remember, you used to either call your best buddy or you go into TASBO Connect and say, who has this vendor? What we can do is, let's say that the vendor your coach worked with was Crown Trophy. You go in, you type in Crown, you do a search, or you can go back and do your search by description, or any other item you might have. And we go back and show us, oh, okay, Round Rock ISD has Crown Trophy as one of their approved vendors. Then you come back and click on that part, and it takes you to two more tabs. Here is you can find out that, okay, what was the contract number, who's the school district, who is the buyer for that district, or who's the contact for that district, that if you needed more information you could. It also comes back and they'll go back and enter, okay, is it EGR compliant for federal funds? If you click on the item tab, you'll get the information about, okay, this is the vendor contact, their email address. This down here is optional information you can go back and add. So you don't have to go back and add, you know, what is the unit price or anything like that for each item. But if you wanted to go back and note that there is a discount available for it, that's fine. So whatever information you add in there is what will show up on the screen. So this is one of the things that every member district will be allowed to go back and do, rather than having to go into TASBO Connect and say, who has this? You'll be able to find the features on here. So that's what the demo looks like on that part. Any questions about the demo part?
Why don't you go ahead and go back into the main screen?
Which part?
Go back into the search.
Okay.
And just clear. Yeah, just hit clear. Do it, just hit search.
Do it now?
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay.
And there you go.
gonna be a
Yeah,
long
it's
listing at
just
the
a
bottom.
view of basically all of the contracts that are currently posted, so there was no certain criteria, so we're just saying we pulled up all the different ones, so. We've got about 55 data on there.
Now, one of the changes we will make to it, because we saw the demo yesterday, was we'll have which school district did the contract originate from, the contract title, the vendor, and rather than the price, it'll have the contract number. And then also, one of the features in it, we'll have a cloning feature. Basically, you can go back and copy the information, but if you have your own vendor contract numbering system that you use within your district, you can go back and change it without just that part, without having to go back and change all the other information to go along with it. With what? Oh, yes.
Bobby, if you wouldn't mind repeating the question, so.
Okay, the question was, what about the beginning and end date for the contract? Let's see, let's go back to Crown. What do they do? Contract start and contract end. So they'll be in there as well. But that's a good point, though, of another item. If I can remember how to get back to the slideshow. That's what we're looking to build into it as we go along. Right now it's kind of basic, but that's one of the features that we do want to go back and include.
Yeah, even though it looks strictly at those dates as being active or inactive, the inactive basically means that it's not going to be viewable. It's still going to be available at a certain level. Because obviously that's still data that may need to go back to those times and not really well. So, but those are going to be certain okay.
So has this been tested already? Okay, thank you. So within the table, what you have is you have different ways to go back and explain the information that we have. The hierarchy that we have is basically level 1 will be Jamie, myself, and then other area or administrative associates. Then it branches out to level 2 for member district administrators and then cooperative administrators. And I'll let Jimmy talk more about the cooperative part of the diagram. But the level 2 is going to be mostly everybody here in this room and out there in the other districts, okay? Because you'll be the ones who coordinate everything for your district in terms of who has access to what are the features. So the level 3 program is level 4. As you can see in the table below it, who has the ability to do what? And when you get down to level 4, it's going to be who actually gets to do the searches. For some of your smaller districts, you're going to be number 2, 3, and 4. In some cases, though, you might say, okay, I want to do level 2 and 3. Everybody else in the district can at least go back and search. So we'll be able to get down to that part as we progress in the whole model. The big key to all this, though, to making it work is input. So like Jamie says, we'll be working with the person cooperatives to go back and add the vendors to it. This is going to require the districts to go back and input the information as well. So as we get ready to roll everything out, it's not going to be a big boom that, okay, we're here. It's going to be rolling it out, so we'll go back and add other features. But as we go along, the big commitment from our member district, because we're over 100 districts strong now across the state of Texas, is that the districts have to go back and add their information as well. So like, I'm sorry, that's level 1, level 2, level 3. As we talked about right now, we're still in the piloting stage. We saw the demo yesterday. We'll tweak some of the features of it that we'd like to go back and change. It'll get to the part where hopefully we want to go back and add, if we have to add documents to it, we can do so as well. The rollout, again, will be gradual as we go back and add features to it. We'll also go back and improve the training too. But like I said, it's going to require the districts to go back and add their vendors information to it. Okay? You can't just be relying on, okay, who does Round Rock and Huddle have for their vendors and everyone's going to be using theirs. It's one of those things of where everyone across the state participating in CTPA is going to have to go back and add their vendors too.
Yeah,
You wanna go talk about that? So one of the things that we wanted to kind of tell y'all about was, as we were conceiving this idea, we were saying like, well, okay, you know, as y'all know, everybody puts out the emails, hey, does anybody have a contract with so-and-so? Okay, so we were trying to figure out exactly, and we've been talking about this for years, you know, how do we aggregate all that information in where everybody can simply just do searches instead of making the request and hopefully somebody will answer. And so from that standpoint, what we were trying to do is make sure that we get all that data together and aggregate it and then make it where it's feasibly available, you know, through a fairly simple search engine. And that's what Bobby just demonstrated. And again, I want to reiterate what Bobby said about the data that's in it is only based on what everybody as a collective puts into it, okay? And it's going to be, we're making sure that we're keeping it as simple as possible. There is going to be, maybe about 8 or 9 elements that are required, which is obviously contract number, contract name, the district, you know, things like that. Those are going to be, the bare bone minimums that you're going to have to put in there. But there's probably going to be about 20 different elements that you kind of saw all the different areas that were going to be tied into it. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to be basically being able to do just an upload of like a CSV file. And I'm assuming everybody's still kind of doing spreadsheets. You're doing that for your tabulations. You're making your awards. A lot of that data is actually residing already in that system. And from that standpoint, that's when we need to kind of say, upload it. And so, and again, if you do it, it's on a monthly basis or as needed. If you got a new vendor and you want to get them in the system and stuff, then that's great. But one of the things I want to kind of reiterate too is that level 4, okay, within Round Rock, some of you are familiar with what we have is called the awesome table. You go on our line and you kind of check just to see if Round Rock's got a contract with a particular vendor. Well, we wanted to make that was not necessarily for y'all. That was for our end users, so the people within our district. And so we wanted to make sure is we had a way to be able to get that to them. We were doing it in PDFs. We would make a PDF copy of the contract award. We called it a contract catalog. We put that out there. And they would have to go into each one of them individually and go search for these vendors. So the awesome table gave us the ability to be able to just aggregate all that into one and they could do the search. Well, within our world, that still needs to happen. But we wanted to put the awesome table away because it's going to cost us too much to continue. And so we want this system to basically be the one that's going to replace it. And what we're looking at is on level 4, instead of being a login like the level 1, 2, and 3, where somebody's going to go in and probably do some manipulation of the system, a level 4 is really just something, we call it a passcode. And so we would basically say RISD 1, 2, 3. As long as you went in and put that passcode in, and we hope that there's not a whole lot of sharing on that, but that way would be, they would simply just go in and they would look and see the same information, but very limited based on what you as the administrator decide. One of the key aspects of it is that in our district, and this is where we've had a lot of discussion in our group, in Bobby's world, he is the purchasing office. He's also many other things, risk assessment and all kinds of stuff. So he doesn't really have a whole lot of time to be spending on normal purchasing functions. So there's a lot of things that he has to go out and use co-ops and stuff and identify contracts that he's going to use that way. And so from that standpoint, he allows his district as a whole to go shopping the cooperatives and CTPA members if available. In Round Rock, we're a little more controlled. We basically say we want them to go to our contracts first and see if we've got a vendor under that contract, and we want them to use our contract. Well, that's level 4. That's all they're going to be able to see. Now, in the purchasing office, what we're going to do is we're going to set it up to where myself, Danny is the manager, and the buyers and any other staff that's in our purchasing office, they're going to be able to see the whole. Okay, so they'll be able to see what other CTPA members have. They'll see, obviously what we have under contract, plus also, and I'll talk a little bit about cooperatives in a second. But that's, they'll be, the purchasing office will be able to see pretty much everything. All right, and what we do is that it's filtered by the administrator at the level 2 point. So you decide, do you want them to see the cooperatives, or you don't want them to see the cooperatives? Do you want them to see only your contracts, or do you want them to see all the CTPA contracts as well? So it's a decision that's going to be made at the administrator level, and we'll kind of walk you through the process once we get you signed on. But we really want to kind of make sure that it's really meets the needs based on what you do in your district. We didn't want to drive how you're going to do it by a decision that's made by the group.
Okay, so now I got Jill back in here. This is the interesting part from the cooperatives. And those of you know Jill, you know, she's probably knows all of y'all, but for the most part, yeah. So, but she represents one GPA. Okay, so as a vendor, as a cooperative, she has information that she likes to provide. We're a member of one GPA on a monthly basis, I guess, is when we get your emails saying, you know, here's our vendor list. So we thought we're going to have the database to be able to do this. Why not allow the co-ops to do this as well? So what we're going to do is we're going to offer this up to the cooperatives. Say, do you want to play? And so basically what that means is, I'll pick on Jill today, one GPA has how many contracts? A lot. Okay. So she has a lot of contracts that she needs to get out there, and so the end users, or you know, her customers, can actually go and find what it is that we're looking for. And it's usually by a vendor, you know, so ABC, you know, whatever. We want to find that particular vendor. Jill, if I'm kind of putting her on the spot, is going to sign on, and they're going to be a player in this. So everything that she's got under contract is also going to be available, as well as all the CTPA members. So now you've got a much bigger group that you're going to be able to search under. And we don't know how many cooperatives are going to be participating. We kind of decided, I think we roughly 25-ish, I think, is what's out there. You probably even know better than that. But you know, we're just going to offer it up. We're not going to obviously mandate it. But what's really cool about the functionality of the system is that I don't have the same cooperatives you have. And so in the administrative level, we'll have a listing of all the cooperatives that we know, and I'll talk about that when I get to this. And we'll have all those listed. You as the administrator go in and say, I have an interlocal with this one, this one, this one. I don't have this one, but I got this one, this one, this one. That's the only thing that's really going to show up in that cooperative search. All right? However, this is where we keep adding on all these little things, that if you're at a level 2 administrator, you actually have the ability to see all of them, even if you do or do not have an interlocal with them. Because, as you know, you have the ability to be able to say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and join this cooperative because they have a particular vendor that I need. And so from that standpoint, you may actually start seeing where you may have a few more interlocals than you had before, because they may have something that you're interested in. And so it kind of gives you a lot more flexibility in your ability to be able to do that. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I needed to cover on that. So yeah, a lot of functionality. We'll probably have to share this as we kind of to grow it. But all right, now, so I want to kind of talk a little bit about this aspect. So for us to be able to put a cooperative in there, we want to assure that as Round Rock ISD or as Elgin or with, I want to say Church Cibolo Universal City, but that's too long. But so from that standpoint, can I trust that cooperative that's on this list? Well, one of the things we want to make sure doesn't happen is that every cooperative that comes to us gets signed into the system. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through an application process. So they, as a cooperative, before they get to join into the AVP, is going to have to go through an assurance test. Okay, so what they're going to do is we have a number of y'all kind of, and I can't remember how many were on the list, but we probably had about 5 or 6 of y'all that were helping out with looking at the application itself. And so what, you know, I'm sure I'll get the phone calls, you know, from a cooperative say, we want to join. Okay, then what I'll do is I'll give them the application. The application will be filled out. We identified that the area directors, we've got 4 of those, are going to be kind of the ones that are going to actually review it. And Lisa, I'm waiting for Lisa to say what. I didn't hear about that, but yeah, she's the one area that's here. And from that standpoint, they're going to review it, make sure that they're doing the newspaper ads, that they're doing, you know, all the things that we do, you know, how, you know, the criteria and all that. Okay, and once they have verified that that cooperative has done what we believe to be necessary, then we will allow them to get into the system. So just be aware that for a cooperative to be in there, you can trust it. Okay, so that's the important part. So hopefully that makes a lot of sense to y'all. And again, you know, as we kind of move forward through this, we'll get those applications out and make them available to the cooperatives once we're kind of feeling comfortable with the system. I think we kind of decided that cooperatives were kind of, at first, we're going to be the first ones we were going to target, but I think we've kind of shifted back a little bit to where we're really looking at the CTPA members as being the first. So, anyway, y'all think of anything else we need to? Okay, so did we call them out?
No, we want to thank Daniel and Leanne and Caleb who just stepped out.
Yeah, now that he's gone. Yeah.
And then Jamie, of course, for helping us with, it's really neat. If you haven't worked personally with Leanne and Daniel and Caleb and Jamie and your project before,
And add Paul into the mix.
and then Paul is next too. It's really, the dynamics are really neat, okay? And in the way everybody just comes together, bringing different perspectives from different angles to be able to put these together. We came up with a new action plan template, okay? And Leanne is really a big driving force behind it too in terms of her project management experience. To go back and look at, okay, how do we keep this thing going? So when we started back in May, looking at, okay, what is our goal, what is our mission, what's our objective, and we come up with the activities, and we're looking at what are the different risk factors and things like that, and how to go back and work the whole process through. It's like, wow, we stayed on track of everything, so that as the projects come up, it's like we can still work it through. Nothing's holding us back on working it through. So it might be one of the things of the future training sessions we want to talk about what we did for our action plan template. I don't know if y'all, have you ever gone to a meeting and say, okay, yeah, let's do this, and you keep going back to meetings, and then meetings, and then meetings, and you figure out nothing's really gotten done? Or at the end, you realize, ooh, yeah, what we thought we came up with, nobody was really looking for in the first place, which means we really didn't do anything. So we started back in May, and then just being focused on the action plan itself to get us to part of where we are now, on the timeline of what we set out to do, it's been pretty amazing.
Yep, so I guess we figured that we probably were down to like 2 or 3 items at the very bottom of the list, and that's really where we're at now. We were talking about that, you know, it's kind of starting to talk about pilot and rollout. That's where we're really kind of getting. There's still some functionality. Aguilar Systems is the company that we have contracted with to build this. Been very easy to work with. You know, if you haven't met Paul, he's a very interesting character, and everybody that sat on this team will admit that Paul is a very interesting character. Very techy. He understands that world very, very well. So, and I can tell you, and I'm just going to give some kudos to Aguilar, is that based on the amount of money that we're having to spend to get this system, they have put a lot of work into it. And so we're getting really a good bargain on this. So, and then also too is the fact that I really want to kind of reiterate that that level 4 is going to be critical at your level, at your district. Giving your end users a means to be able to get your information out of the purchasing office to where it's not necessarily supporting all the other CTPA members, it's more supporting your district. And so by utilizing this system and being able to push that information out to your end users is going to be critical. And so that we hopefully is going to be really the biggest win that you're going to see. We can speak for the Awesome Table when we established it, what was it, about 3 years ago or so? An Awesome Table, no. Almost 4 or 5, yeah. I'm calling on Angie only because of the fact that she was around at that time. But the main thing was the fact that once we rolled it out, everybody's like going, wow, you know, we like this. And so it was a pretty quick win on that part. So anyway, and I'll call out Mr. McGoogle here. He's also known as Todd, our techie on demand in our office. He's actually supposed to be our fixed asset specialist, but we actually kind of drag him in, as you can tell, doing other things as assigned. So, but anyway, he's been very helpful in, you know, kind of keeping a lot of our Google stuff up, and that's part of the Awesome Table and stuff too. So, anyway, all right. Any questions on AVP? Okay. Well, if I got Nicole doing a thumbs up, then I'm good. Sir. It's not me. I will not take any credit because I've got staff that makes it too easy. Oh, thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you for the clarification, Matt. Some of us have known each other too long. But anyway, so all right. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll make more announcements. The idea, kind of like we were talking about Patricia, we were going to be going out and doing webinars and stuff. Kind of like what we're doing today. We're using YouTube to kind of get the message out. And when we start to roll this out, we know that we'll be able to kind of, meet you that way. And obviously, the districts that have kind of helped build this, Hutto, Elgin, Round Rock, will be the ones that have kind of pressed the information out there to kind of at least get a start. And then I know that there are certain districts that will be asking to help load some information in, so just kind of be aware. We'll be calling you and asking, can you help us out and get some data out there so we can kind of test out the pilot and make sure that it's functioning before we start doing more of a rollout. So, thank you, sir. Appreciate it, man. And thanks to Bobby because of the fact that, having somebody that's in charge makes it so much nicer. So. Okay, we're going to run through some of these additional items. Hopefully everybody's got a copy of the agenda. First of all, thank you for all that responded and voted for the membership fees for next year. The 2018 fee amount was $125. We were able to bring it down to $100 for this month, for this next year coming up, and so we're going to be at $100. So kind of make note. Be it Nancy or someone else, and I'll talk about this in a little bit. We'll be contacting you with a copy of the invoice, so that you can probably around. I think we did December or something. Each year is when we start sending it out. So it'll be $100. So just be prepared for that. Okay, innovative furniture processes, and of course George alluded to this a little bit earlier. Those of you can remember, I've been big on surveys lately, and so I've asked how y'all are dealing with innovative furniture. I can tell you in Round Rock, it's been very interesting. Over the last few years, we can't standardize on anything anymore. It seems like, so much for blue plastic chairs and walnut colored tops on open front desk and combo desk and everything like that. That doesn't seem to be the norm anymore. And so it's been very interesting. In Round Rock, we have pretty much whoever the campus administrator is, the principal that got hired. When we're developing that campus, they have a whole lot of autonomy in the way of making decisions. And obviously that makes it a little difficult on purchasing because of the fact that we're trying to figure out what it is that they want, and want is the key word there. And so from that standpoint, we're trying to figure out exactly how to kind of drive that a little bit better so we can be a little bit more standardized. And I can appreciate what Colleen is doing on their side to kind of have the vendor expo to kind of do that. And George, on that standpoint, are y'all inviting people within the district, like teachers and stuff like that, to come in and kind of look at the furniture?
Yes, we got 15 internal district representatives, mainly on the curriculum.
Okay.
And one principal that's coming, and so it's all of our leadership, facilities, CFO, curriculum department, secondary, elementary, the executive leaders, all those are part of the evaluation committee.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, we have the students, we wanted to sort of get their view of what who's coming. And then from there, we invited the neighboring districts because of people who
No, 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 no. Because of the fact that I've kind of talked a little bit with Danny about, what we're wanting to do here, because in Round Rock, we've got a bond that's out on the street, and so right now, we don't know if it's going to pass or not. And if it does, then obviously we've got some new facilities that we're going to have to be prepared to put furniture in. Plus also, every year we have what's called innovative grants that actually occurs on our campuses, and they have to go through an application, and then they get awarded that grant through an internal process. And so from our standpoint, it's like when we've seen so many of those applications coming across that somebody wants to try something new in the classroom, and it always includes furniture. Plus also we find out after the fact that some vendor went into a campus and said, hey, I want to outfit one of your classrooms, and I'm going to give you the furniture for free. And of course, naturally, we don't know about it until somebody says, hey, can you move this or do that? And we're like, where'd this furniture come from? And well, it was some parent that, works for some company that wants to, and, so we really want to try to kind of reel some of that in. And what's been somewhat disappointing is the fact that, like with the innovative grants, we don't get feedback. They don't tell us it worked or it didn't work. And so I've got to really work with that group to kind of get a little bit more understanding of, what the end result was. My main thing too is the fact that, knowing who these vendors are that are selling the innovative furniture, and as you said, alluded to, is the problem is the fact that it moves. It's not that it's on casters, it's just it changes. And from that standpoint, we really got to kind of get some a grip on how it's going to do. We probably still have maybe, probably 60-ish% of our district is still old furniture. And so we still keep it in our warehouse, the old stuff. Nobody wants us to ship the old stuff, even though it's new. But we're, it's like until we have the funds to be able to replace everything that's in that, campus, then you're going to keep getting the same stuff. And, it's just, we can't, we got 55 campuses, we've got to be very diligent in how we're going to manage all of that. So, but I think this is one of those areas we need to kind of focus in on. I want to hear how things go on the 31st. I don't know if I'll be able to make it, but that, seems like a great opportunity because obviously trying to figure out who the vendors are. Matter of fact, when I was at the ASBO International Conference, I actually talked to one of the vendors that was there, and I was just kind of, getting the spiel and stuff. It's one reason why I walked down the middle of the house, so I don't have to talk to these people. But the main thing that I wanted to find out from him was, is there anyone that I can hire within Round Rock that actually can work with our curriculum group to actually determine what is considered best practice in the way of innovative furniture? What I found out though is that all those people have been hired by the manufacturers. You can't find independents, which is very disappointing because I really want to find somebody that can come to us and say, this is what we're seeing in the marketplace, all these different companies have these different deals. They're all the same. It's just a different design. Doesn't matter which one you pick. That's what I want, to hear that message being told to my curriculum people. And so that this person can actually work with that new principal and say, okay, just be aware, this was done over in some campus over in Arizona. They saw test scores drop. Well, the last thing you want to do is buy anything that drops scores. But of course it could be the culture of that school, stuff. So it's really difficult to be able to kind of figure that out. And is furniture really going to drive test scores? I don't know. That's why we want to hire somebody that can tell us that's not tied to a manufacturer. Yes, sir.
This last school we stood at, the biggest thing was collaboration.
So every nook and cranny of the campus, whether it be in a stairwell or it be in just different corners of the campus, and this is an elementary school, was collaborative tables where the students could be able to visit and troubleshoot things. And the other thing was a tabletop that was a dry erase type capacity. So that was the biggest thrust of that. And then the fact that a table, for example, this round table, they wanted one that you could maybe remove and just be half of that so that students could have more mobility. So that was the biggest focus. As far as the stools and the alphabet seating and all that for children to also collaborate, they found out that more as children in middle school likes the cafeteria or the cafe style high chair to be able to do that, but they also enjoy standing up. Where in our middle schools, they like more of that collaborative. So it was more of a mixture of normal desk with some stools where the students can sort of move and do those type of things, and then some other ones that are different sizes.
Which is interesting, in fact, the one department they get asked is custodial services. What do they think? So,
And also, we just built the school last year, elementary and middle school connected. And the flip desk, they want to move this stuff around, they want to have a big collaboration area. And it's pretty cool stuff.
So, similar cases executed also executing, $150 million bond, so we just, September, opened up the elementary. It's all innovative furniture process, so we had collaborative learning, with like kidney shaped tables that can be configured, individualized, like trapezoid desks that can be configured into circles or squares, multiple, whatever. Things that like go up and down, writables, write and erase, desks. We had like stools, like we actually had a science, like they have a little science lab now with the science, like more like a high, what you would imagine in high school, like the science table. But the stools also were more ergonomically developed so that they have different rungs, so like kids at different heights could like be tall or be short or whatever. Even teachers, one of the things that we're finding out, although we can't just do away altogether with teacher desks, new generation teachers, a lot of them don't want a desk at all, or they prefer to use like a half of a kiddie table so that they can take a kiddie table and have stools or the student chairs come around and they can work like in groups that way, or you can sit like kind of that way, or some of them are now like we're doing this year. So this August we opened Union Elementary, and then next year August I'm opening the second elementary and a high school, which the high school is out for great. But it looks like a spaceship because it's just ginormous with all these different CT curriculums. What we're finding is we didn't do away with the teacher desk, but we went to a smaller profile teacher desk that has elevation, so they can use it as a pedestal podium or some other, or pull it out the way or whatever. So there was an argument, but you still have teachers who want the desk. So you can't just say, oh no, no more desk, because you have a new teacher, and oftentimes you don't know who's going to be in that new school. So they're like, well, where's my desk? So that was something that we developed, and we used a similar evaluation process. It was a little bit smaller, but we had the key curriculum principal obviously were drivers. They were allowed to like choose like specific colors. We went, the overall process was to choose a 21st century collaborative learning style. And initially we went out to bid, and how we ended up doing the first time ever a turnkey solution. So we had a single vendor that provided our furniture and did everything. Turnkey project management, installation, delivery, disposal, everything. And I second the emotion of, in the beginning, it's wonderful. We started with like 7 vendors, and we narrowed it down to one who we awarded to. They all could put together beautiful schools, but we gave them that marching order, like this is what we want, our vision. But the best thing about the vendor that we selected was that they did not leave me hanging. They organized everything, because as you all know, there's a very short window before school opens, and the school was being constructed, so it was supposed to be finished in July 5th, and it wasn't. So then they had like a 3-week window to get everything in and whatever, and then purchasing had to follow up and make sure that I got what I paid for, and fix the asset tagging. But, and as they always are, there were legs missing, but they took control of that. I didn't have to worry about it. I did a walkthrough. They're like, this is what you have, this is what you don't. You have 27 legs missing. You got this missing or whatever. And when it all came in, they put it together and gave me a final walkthrough. They did not dodge my phone calls. When trucks arrived a week before they were supposed to get there, and now they're calling me and like, oh, you have trucks here for this. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? So I called my vendor, and they're like, no problem, we'll take care of it. So they're doing our elementary and they're doing the high school, but one, yes. Worthington. Wonderful. I cannot say enough. For me, thank God.
But also, you're looking at, this is quality. And a lot of these furniture vendors say they can provide it, but it has to be made well, and stuff that doesn't have to be put together that can just go in the classroom
we've kind of discovered that over time, or at least our curriculum department is like going, oh, we thought this was gonna last longer, but no. So, okay, so we're gonna obviously have ongoing conversations again. George, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of give us an update on how things go. Okay. All right. Matthew, you're on.
Thank you, Daniel. I had a question I raised to Todd for Connect. It's about software. And some time ago, we used to have that, you used to be able to get a third quote in our education code. That was taken away several years ago, so you can't get third quotes, well, 3 quotes for stuff anymore. At least it's not a provision in the statute anymore. So how do you purchase software? I've been reluctant to allow purchases of software, online software, let's say $500, because it doesn't really end up being a $300 or $500. It's $300 or $500 year one, and then it's so many dollars year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. And do you aggregate your software as in the FASRIG example in categories of software? And they need to be on a contract, or do you permit your campuses or departments or to go ahead and make those purchases? And if you do you have any competition whatsoever, or do you get 3 quotes for that one purchase and just let it ride for as long as they want it to ride on the software renewals? That was my question.
Most of it goes through technology, kind of spearheads ours. So the short answer generically is, for the most part, the campuses are not individually allowed to just go and make their individual software purchases. They have to go through the technology department and the director of technology first and foremost as to validate it. Generically speaking, we buy a lot of software off of BIR, so we're using a cooperative, competitively, whatever, so that kind of takes care of the 3 quotes. If it is something that it's a software that is corresponding to something existing that we have or something in place and it kind of speaks to it, we can sometimes, if we write a little justification, treat it, I'm going to use a term called like a follow-on sole source, like this is applicable to this, or the whole athletic department is using this blah, 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 and in order not to preclude purchasing a whole nother thing, we're going to consolidate and utilize this, whereas there may be 4 different things that kind of sort of do it, but only one that speaks with this existing whatever we've already purchased. But for the most part, we do a lot of stuff to DIR, and it does have to go through technology, so they don't have carte blanche and haze to just buy whatever they want, regardless of the dollar value.
Very important as far as integration with your system, with your hardware supported. It's something that doesn't conflict with whatever your operating system that you're using. It's they're not necessarily concerned about competition. They're more concerned about does it work for that system. So yeah, we'll continue to keep technology in the loop.
I'd just like to share kind of what Roundrock ISD has started doing recently. Our purchasing office and technology, instructional technology, legal, and curriculum departments all came together and developed a new software and applications contract that includes a multi-level review by each of those departments for any new software being requested for use within the district. I would say overall it's going okay. It's still somewhat of a work in progress. There's been a little bit of frustration with it taking too much time to get through those steps, and we're currently trying to find a way to streamline it a little more. But overall, because student data privacy has become such a big concern, we're definitely addressing that now with new software and applications that are being requested. There's a bunch that we have that have been in use, and we're doing what we can to get those vendors awarded under that contract rather than calling it a subscription renewal or continuing to make purchases through our existing instructional materials contract, which technically should not really include software products. So that's what we're doing. If anybody is interested in doing something similar, feel free to reach out to me and I can show you we have a website for it, and I can give you our bid documents and give you more information.
Yeah, CTPA privacy would probably leave one driver of the group, and we actually saw where, all of a sudden the radar blip was getting really big. And a lot of things were happening on the campus that, nobody was monitoring, whereas technology would find out about somebody uploading software on their computer, and next thing you know, everything was behind the curve instead of in front of the curve. And so that was one of the things that we really had to kind of focus in on, and that's why the group that came together was actually helped develop the process we were actually going to do. We actually do have a form originally that they had to fill out, telling us how they're going to deal with student data privacy, and what was it? Personal identifiable information (PII) and personal medical information (PMI) or whatever it is. Yeah. But anyway, so we had to be very cautious, making sure that any of these companies we're going to deal with are going to be able to meet that need, and that's probably pretty much some of the things that actually kind of create a problem with the the flow of getting it done quicker. But one of the things we wanted to kind of make sure is, first of all, that it's under the cover of a RFP, so we've met the legal requirement. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything's good, but we did make a requirement that, kind of like math, we didn't really define what the word small meant. And it's really based on how you want to approach it at your district. We obviously, from the driver being the competitive bid threshold is 50,000. If we are using a particular product for a particular process, we kind of use that as being kind of the litmus test on, is that the same as other products. And so the driver sometimes is like when we've got this list of softwares that are out there and available to you. The our instructional technology group, because of the fact that they're the ones that are having to manage this on the campus level, really don't want us to have 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 different math type of softwares for a fifth grade class. And so, they're really kind of trying to find a way to be able to kind of drive that, but it's really difficult to tell a teacher which one to use. Because their class is going to be different from this fifth grade to this fifth grade. And so we're trying to figure a way, purchasing, to find a way that it's going to be legal, but then us with the purchasing hats are trying to figure out the best way to make this purchase more viable in our world. And so that's trying to find that good balance in there. And that's why we're hoping. We're what, a year into this? Yeah. And so we're still, like Danny said, we're working progress on that. Anybody else got how they deal with software?
They have to approve it, and then if it needs a sole source or something, I mean, it's several steps.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, Matt, you did get what you needed, or at least okay. One of the things that we have a new partner, a new member out in Midland, Mr. Garcia, and so one of the things it kind of popped in my mind the other day. I just want to kind of reiterate EDGAR certification. I know that that's one of those areas everybody said, I need somebody that's under contract that is EDGAR certified. Honestly, you don't need to ask that question. The reason being is because you can always certify them yourself, and I highly recommend you do that. So if Round Rock has a contract, we've had it going for a year, and you choose to adopt that, okay, if you use our certification information, that's a year old. If you actually look at what the recommendations are from TEA and stuff, they're saying it's best to actually do that on an annual basis. I'm not exactly sure how many people are doing that, but that is the recommendation. And from that standpoint, if you feel it important enough that you need to have that documentation, you need to get that certified field, that they've done the process, do it yourself. You can't, the EDGAR does not say that it has to be done at the solicitation time. It just means at the time that you're making the award, get the certification documents. If you've got one that you have in your district, use that. Just send it to them, get them to affirm the document. You get that document, you throw it in the file, you check the DBAR list, you're good. The auditor should not have any issue. And what's really good about it is the fact that it's at that date, not something in the past. So that's one of the recommendations I've got for that. And I just wanted to make sure that I kind of covered that. Has anybody got any questions or comments on that? Nicole?
contracts, and, as we started doing it as POs would be coming through off of existing contracts, so we wouldn't approve the PO, we would hold it up and tell the vendor, I have this PO, but I need you to do certifications before we release it. And it's amazing how quickly they will return them to you when you're holding their PO.
You're only doing that on federal side.
Yes, correct.
See, not doing it for everything.
Yeah, but, we set it up where it's done, annually. So we set it up like it did prior to, like, we set it up with our fiscal calendar. So we have them set up, so we're not, even though this one we asked for in January, and instead of keeping up with 17 different, we're just doing them at one time, asking for the recertifications annually, like August 1st or whatever, and keeping those and scan it in and go with that.
Any other comments?
What if your child nutrition department wants to purchase something through Office Depot using their federal funds?
Okay.
Where does the Edgar certification come in that too?
Well, it's actually ARM, it's not EDGAR. So it now falls into the Department of Agriculture. It's no longer EDGAR when it comes to child nutrition. So that's what you have to follow. And that means that the thresholds are lower. You know, they're not what the OMB came out with June, and TEA finally adopted in September. So, you know, you still have to go through that process. But for the most part, you know, Danny, can you remember ARM is pretty much, in a way, the certification process is pretty much the same thing. It's a federal document that we use to be able to do it, so I would assume that TDA is using the same one on the certification side, and that's what we follow. Yeah.
When I looked at the results of our school nutrition on what they were using, for example, micro purchase, and they were all over the place. All they really required was proof that you didn't go to the same place more than once. And then for those that would fall under the small purchase, they just wanted to see the 3 quotes. And it didn't matter where you got it from, if it fell within that threshold of the small purchase, as long as you had the 3 quotes. So that's what they were looking for. So because our school nutrition, if they needed something right away, they'd go either to here or Sam's or Perry's or whatever they needed to do to make that happen. So they were using a multitude of micro purchases and small purchases. And at the results, they had all the information that was needed for the audit. So they did very well with the micro purchase, and they did very well with small purchase. And all they wanted to see was show me proof under the small purchase of the other quotes that you had as to how you made that determination.
This issues certification document that they use for vendors and that kind of this issues certification document for each of the vendors that
Okay, okay. So from the standpoint of using co-ops, this is kind of that same situation. So from that standpoint, when you do already kind of, you know, as you would, you know, adopting anybody else's contracts, you know, and they do say that all of their contracts are certified, and I know, you know, that one GPA does this as well. And so from that standpoint, you can always cover your base by getting them to sign one for you. So it's just basically the same process. You can buy them from a DIR or anybody. You know, if you feel comfortable with what they tell you, and you can defend that to an auditor, even though, like Tricia said, you know, if you go back to that third party and they say, oh, we don't have that document, you're kind of left holding the bag. So it may be best, especially on larger purchases, to go ahead and get that document. So, all right, that sounds like okay. All right, moving right along. Multiple award contracts, use or non-use of awarded vendors. One of the things we were just kind of curious. We get a lot of vendors that sign up under our, you know, like classroom instructional, and you know, and all of our multiple award contracts. So we're just kind of curious. How do y'all deal with? Do y'all have a process or a vetting process on the front end before you will award them, or do you just allow the vendors just to come in, you know, without?
Basically, the next commodity that we're asking for, we don't do an evaluation. In fact, that just recently went through a issue, or not an issue, but a question. We were audited by an external auditor. And one of the things they wanted to do was for us to minimize the level of what we call catalog bids. And so we understand their point of view, but also the level of need in a district that's pretty large. And one of the areas that they saw for us that they really had an issue with that woke everybody up was the therapy services bid. And for us, we have multiple vendors that do therapy services, especially for our special education department on an hourly rate. But we cannot singularly identify only one because our level of need is so overwhelming that if I was to do that, then we wouldn't be able to provide the services. Therefore, I would be in other violations of other policies. So what we explained to them that although I understand the need to evaluate and when it's warranted, we will select one vendor based upon the evaluations of 44031. But in a high demand district, that even with the folks that I have listed on that approved vendor list, the need is so overwhelming that I still have to sometimes look for other sources. So for us, as long as it matches the commodity, and that's the tricky part, because some of our vendors sometimes sign up for our e-bid system, and you wonder, they may select all. So you do have to weed them because you obviously know that, no, you're a recycling company, you have nothing to do with therapy services. So we weed you out of that. But if you are, in fact, a business that's doing therapy services, we will leave you on there. And then if there's further need of you, then we will then inquire more about you and see if our departments do, in fact, need your services and can you provide those. So we really have never had any major issues where a vendor was part of that, but we do have multiple bids that are multi-award. And that functions very well for us because our 55 campuses are strictly based upon their needs, and so it's very difficult for one campus to say, I want the same as the other campus, so we have to have all of these vendors in order to meet that demand. So,
Yeah, our job is acquisition, to a certain extent, but it's also prep, being prepared. And so a lot of times, like school specialty, obviously we're going to use them continuously. But there are those, small, obscure little companies that sell very unique products. Are we going to need them? Don't know. And do you want to go ahead and, grease that skid and have them under contract so that when that need arises that you're good to go? Or do you want to try to create, go through the process to try to get them under contract when the need arises? And time becomes what's valuable. And I'm just kind of curious, mainly because of the fact that we're talking about, we've kind of gotten away from having, extension years. It's just the labor that goes along with that. You have the ability to make, extended years, and it's more performance-based contracts. And so we've kind of gotten away from doing the extensions on those. But for those of you that are still doing the extensions, do you require that they've done business with you before you actually extend the next year? And so I know that, I sit on the board now for Board, and so from that standpoint, I know that they have, during, the sessions, they go to the very bottom and they say, well, we're kicking this particular vendor off the contract because we haven't sold anything, they haven't sold anything over the last year. And so we don't go through that due diligence of verifying, because that's, the hundreds of vendors, if not thousands of vendors that we've got out there under contract, the amount of time that goes into all of that. So I'm just kind of curious,
Over contact, very similar, like I use like occupational therapy, or whatever. That's the same thing. I can't just have one vendor because also they're in very high demand. So if I went with one company, they very may well not have someone available. So just because of availability and able to come when I need them to come, I need to have multiple vendors. So in answer to your other question, we don't kick them off if we didn't use them that day, but I do like having them because it gives the different campuses flexibility. So we'll do the vetting on the front end when I do the bid so make sure that they meet the criteria, they can, fulfill the requirement, that they have the applicable certification. So we do it on the front end, put them as a multiple vendor, and then then the campuses can use carte blanche whoever they want, as long as they don't go over the threshold of whatever we've taken to board for that service. So that's how we deal with it.
You mentioned about not doing the make it a multiple year contract, a 5-year contract, or 10-year contract?
3-year, 4-year, whatever seems appropriate for that particular commodity or service. Mainly because of the fact that, again, you know, it's just every year you had to, and if you forgot to send it and it was that, you know, you didn't, you know, extend it before the end date, and all of a sudden it died, you know, you can't resurrect it. So, you know, from that standpoint, we kind of felt like, okay, to kind of remove a little bit of that challenge on the buyers at that particular time of year. And we've got a lot of contracts now to start fiscal year, so during that period of time, trying to get all of that done was very difficult. And we were like, okay, why are we doing this to ourselves? And so we decided that we actually put the language in there that we require, you know, that we have the ability to be able to remove them under contract if we believe that their performance level has gone below what we expect. And we had that anyway, but now it's become the forefront. You know, it's not that we will extend it, you know, for, you know, we have 1 year plus 4 extensions. We just say, you've got a 5-year contract. And I think our notice of award actually tells them, you need to stay, you know, on top of this, because if not, we're going to drop you off the contract, especially on multiple awards. Because if, you know, like George said, are talking about, you know, don't do that to me because I'm going to kick you off. So, yeah, it's just, you know, a different practice. Okay. Any thoughts on that? Beyond? Okay. Let's see. TASBO Connect. One of the things I always kind of make sure that everybody understands, we've discovered that about half of our members have not done a really good job of signing up for Connect. So when we send out invoices and stuff like that, we realize that half of our members aren't getting the notification. I'm asking again that please make sure you have your information correct in TASBO, and I'm assuming most of you are members, and hopefully you're getting the emails. You do have a setting that when you go into the CTPA Connect, that you can actually show that it's going to deliver to you when somebody posts something, which I don't recommend, but then you get a bunch of emails. Or you just do it on a daily digest, kind of like what you get with Open Forum, assuming everybody gets Open Forum, you know, and it'll be basically the same thing. You would get one for CTPA, you get one for Open Forum, and get it on a daily basis. Now, I know some of you are like, well, I really want to know if somebody has a vendor today. Well, hopefully the AVP is going to take care of that. But, you know, it may be, though, that, you know, it may be a day before somebody actually responds back to you. You do know that you can go into Connect directly, not wait on your email to actually see and monitor to see if anybody's responded. So you don't have to wait for the next day to be able to do that. But please make sure, and I see George has got his contingency here, and you're making sure that all of y'all are set up in, you know, the CTPA Connect. And I want to make sure that everybody is signed up and is getting those emails. One of the ladies in the office is helping me try to identify who these people are that we don't have in the system. And I found out I've got a little area that I can automatically set you up. So I don't have to ask you to join, I join you into this process. So yeah, it makes my life a little bit easier from that standpoint. But again, please, Connect is how we communicate for the most part. That's the reason why you're seeing the emails coming out of my world now instead of coming out of Connect, is because of that issue. So I want to kind of move back into Connect. So, okay, CTPA administrative assistants. We hit 100 members. Believe it or not, those of us have been, and I can tell you the file's gotten really thick with all the interlocals that I've got. So one of the things that, in talking with the officers, especially with the AVP coming on, I can't manage all of that, and so, and plus also on Nancy's side in way of helping track, you know, payments and stuff like that. The officers have decided that it's okay for us to move forward. We're trying to get somebody that's going to give us some assistance. It's not a full-time employee. It's just somebody that's going to work a little bit for us. And those of you that remember Martha, has signed, Martha Smith has agreed that she would like to participate and actually be this person, which is very good because I don't have to explain what CTPA is because she was an original member. And so we're kind of working out the details, wanting to kind of get AVP up and running and get prepared that way. But also too, it's all of the logistics and funding and how we actually get her either as an employee or under contract and all that kind of stuff. So, but we're going to be bringing somebody on that's going to assist. And she's actually going to work really well because of the fact that, you know, she'll be working from home. And so, you know, she didn't have to go anywhere. She'll be, you know, monitoring things and such. And she'll probably be the point person with a lot of the questions you may have related to the program stuff we got going on. So, just a little FYI. Okay, I think the last item is on there is the TASPO certification stuff. We've got a certification class coming up on the 25th out at the TASPO headquarters. So if you've got any staff members that need to take an ethics class, yes, they have to listen to me for a day. But anyway, we've got some space, and they've got, if you've got anybody that needs to take an ethics class, it's a good day to do it. Especially in the local. Those of you that are in other areas may not be quite so convenient, but just want to let you know about that. Then we also have the boot camp, purchasing boot camp and purchasing academy in Allen. On the boot camp's on the 7th, and the academy is the 8th and 9th. So if you didn't get that notification, it's a pretty good event. A lot of attendance. We usually have anywhere from 175 to 200 people show up. A lot of conversation, a lot of networking. So it's a great place to go to learn more. So, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and let y'all eat. And I want to give get up here. Yes, get up here. Okay, so, and yes, I'm pretty demanding. So anyway, most of y'all know Jill. Okay, she is represented for 1GPA. And so, do you have anything you want to spiel today?
Well, I have met most of you personally, so I want to thank you for your kindness, letting me in your offices. I know y'all are extremely busy, and the last thing you want to do is just chat with someone who you don't know about what you're doing all day, every day. But just to touch on a few things, I know Jamie sent a message out when we originally awarded Forecast 5 their contract. So we still are the only cooperative that Forecast 5 has a contract on. We recently got Veridesk to respond, and the reason we did that was because I'm out there meeting with purchasing directors, trying to figure out, who are you looking for, who's not on contract, what can we do to help you, because we're only as successful as you allow us to be. And so if I do come knock on your door or shoot you an email, I'm serious when I say 15 minutes is all I need, because I'm trying to get to the next person, you're trying to get to lunch or wherever you need to be. So just a quick combo is all I need, and any input you guys can offer is just going to make us more successful to benefit you guys. So thank you.
And if you call her and ask her to show up, she might actually get Tip Treats to drive by and deliver some tickets. Anyway, they have to sign.
It's like a carrot. It's a bait. I have to bait y'all to let me come in. But yeah, lunch is provided out there. It's a lovely Italian lunch that I did not cook, so you should be safe. You should all be safe. So enjoy. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, and thank you for lunch. Okay, we're going to go ahead and y'all can get your food, and then if you've got any open discussion and stuff while you're eating, we can go ahead and do it. So.